Welcome everyone. Goodness, that's loud. Welcome to the Risk and Assurance Committee meeting. I'd like to ask Councillor Marshall Loboshe to open our meeting with a karakia. Thank you.
Tēnā koe, Mr. Chair, o te rā tēnā tātou katoa. Greetings everyone. Tū tawa mai I runga, tū tawa mai I raro, tū tawa mai I roto, tū tawa mai I waho. Kia tau ai te Māori tū, te Māori ora, ki te katoa, haumi e, hui e, ka eki e. Tēnā koe, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. So item 2 on our agenda today, should go through the housekeeping, which should be on the screen in front of you. So this meeting is being recorded and is being live streamed on the Council's YouTube channel. There are some health and safety procedures which are in front of us on the screen. I'd ask all online participants to keep their cameras turned on and microphones muted unless you're addressing the meeting. And councillors are aware of how the electronic devices work. Text any amendments or email to the committee administrator if you're attending online. And obviously officers, given this is live stream, please give your name and role before speaking. Moving on now, we have an apology for early departure from our Mayor. And I'd also note that we have online today Councillor Johnson, who is unwell but attending the meeting online. She will be joining us shortly. I'm unaware of any additional items. We haven't been notified of any, and there also haven't been any declarations of interest, and I don't believe there's any public comment for today. So we'll go back now and move that the committee receive the apologies from the Mayor for his early departure. Have a mover, Councillor Denison, seconder, Councillor Naylor. So we'll put that to the vote. That's been carried unanimously, so we'll now move to agenda item 6, which is the confirmation of minutes from our meeting of the 27th of November in the Part 1 public part of that meeting. So I have a recommendation that the minutes of the Risk and Assurance Committee meeting of the 27th of November be confirmed as a true and correct record. Do I have a mover? Councillor Naylor and a seconder, Councillor Denison. So if there's no further comment, we'll put that to the vote. We're just going to have to take that vote again. We're missing someone, so. I did. I think I missed it that time. Yeah. Too quick. It flashed up and disappeared. Sorry. Last time. Lorna's online. There's something not working here because, yeah.
Is Councillor Bowen, is she online? Is Councillor Bowen online?
Councillor
Councillor
Johnson.
Johnson's online. Councillor Finlay. Have you voted? Right, would you like them to practice or do you count Councillor Finlay's vote?
Look, I think, shall we just count your vote? Okay, thank you. So I think we can note that recommendation or resolution's been carried unanimously by those that have voted, with 3 abstentions. So that then brings us to our agenda item 7, which is the independent health and safety audit. So I'd like to welcome to the table Desiree Viggers, our Manager Legal Risk and Insurance. Welcome Franz Assenmacher, Director of Safe on Site, who's compiled his report, and Salman Ponga Davis, our Health and Safety Manager. So, welcome, and we're in your hands in terms of your presentation.
Right, thanks, morning. So Safe Plus. Morning. We were requested to do a follow-up Safe Plus audit following a previous Safe Plus audit that occurred in 2021. Just for your information, Safe Plus assessment is quite different to other safety audits. Other safety audits are based on evidence. So other audits will look at paperwork. Safe Plus primarily looks at discussions with workers. Only 20% of the report is based on evidence. 80% is based on what workers are saying. So it could be subjective. So just so you appreciate, the focus is really around the workers and what they're saying, not the evidence that was provided. Last year I did about 10 to 12 Safe Plus audits. 80% of the organisations are at that first stage, the developing stage. Only about 10 to 15% go on to the performing stage, and no one is at that leading stage. To get leading, for any organisation to get leading, it's really difficult because Safe Plus has got not a pass and fail regime. Safe Plus goes from developing, performing to leading. So it's a journey that people undertake. Right. Anything else? So currently, council is, so when you say council, in 2021, they were at the developing stage. When we've come back in 2024, they've gone up to the performing stage. So there's been quite a marked improvement in the risk management of the organisation, and there's also been quite a marked improvement around risk management and worker engagement. So compared to 21, there was clear evidence of the progress being made. Yep. Any questions?
I'll open the floor for questions. So we have Councillor Zabelin waiting. So.
Thanks, Mr. Chair, and thank you for the report. I had a question about your 3 stages of assessment and whether or not there is a sliding scale or stages within those 3 levels of assessment, noting that there's some commentary that we'd be assessed at the initial stages of performing.
Yeah, so every question within the Safe Plus has got a sliding scale. So we we assess every question based on whether you are developing, performing, or leading, but then we roll all the questions together, and then we determine, so there are three main categories. There's a category around leadership, there's a category around risk management, and there's a category around worker participation. So what we do is we wrap all the questions up and say, for each of those three different sections, where is an organisation sitting, and then we wrap those three up into an overall score. So when we looked at the levels, so the leadership came in at developing, risk management came in at performing, and the work engagement came at performing, but it's still on the beginning stages of performing, so that's why we said you're at performing, but you're only at that beginning stages of performing. There's still got to be a shift change to get you up to that leading stage. So we want to acknowledge you at performing, but we also want to acknowledge it's just at the beginning stages of performing.
Thank you. So is this more about optimising our processes to improve them rather than addressing any glaring flaws?
I think it's more around how much workers understand. And so normally we ask two questions. We say, are your safety processes fit for purpose, and are they effective? And so the effective, so you'll find that in the report, we could not find evidence of workers saying that the processes are effective. So when you looked at all your processes and talk to your workers, it's about, yes, your safety system is fit for purpose, but now, so the next stage is it effective? And so when we engage with workers, we're trying to find the effectiveness. So the effectiveness comes about how much workers are engaged in your systems.
Thank you. And just one final one. On page 31, there's a recommendation to undertake a review of PeopleSafe and questions whether this platform is still fit for purpose. Is there an indication that it might not be fit for purpose?
From what workers were saying, workers were indicating that you've had PeopleSafe for many years. Technology has advanced, but PeopleSafe hasn't appeared to keep track with current technology, and so workers find PeopleSafe a bit cumbersome. And as technology advances, I don't believe Safe Plus or PeopleSafe has kept up, with apps, with AI technology and stuff like that.
Right. So it might be superseded. Might be
Yep.
better things out there.
Absolutely.
Great. Thank you. That's all from me. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Barrett.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks, friends. Appreciate the work that you put in. A few questions here. Did you do our 2021 audit, or was that somebody else?
Yes, no. I did the 2021 audit as well.
Okay, great. Thank you. Why did we end up with 5 deep dives instead of 2 or 10?
So the requirement of the audit requirement is you need at least 3. And one of the 3 must be health. So we expect to review 2 safety risks and 1 health risk. The organisation just chose 5 because they wanted me to look at more risks. So as far as the assessment goes, you only had to do 3, but doing 5, it just shows a bit more proactiveness.
Great, thank you. Not sure if this is a question for you, Franz, or perhaps for our staff, but would just like to get a sense of how open this process was to our workers. As I understand it, only a small subset of workers actually had the chance to directly participate, and I'm interested in knowing how open it was to the whole set of workers within the organization that may have wanted to participate.
Through the chair, thanks for your question, Councillor. The staff we chose were particularly in operational space, so looking at our data, we looked at where all our risk is. So we were quite selective around the people we chose, especially on the front line. So there was a group who were predominantly frontline workers. We wanted to get feedback and make sure that we had all the strategies in place that protected them on the front line. So as staff, they're all competent staff, and we're all free to speak as freely as they wanted to. There was no management in the room, so every opportunity was there for them to share freely.
Thanks. I guess I'm interested particularly in that selection process. So was it kind of a hands up to all staff who might want to participate, or was it more of a management view of who would be best to participate?
We reached out through the Health and Safety committees on those who could be available. With the Health and Safety reps, we reached out also. So there's staff and Health and Safety reps involved in that.
Great, thanks for that answer. Finally, at this stage, Mr. Chair, just one question around the recommendations. The deep dive around frontline working on page 34, the recommendation is that the organization may wish to undertake random planned safe behavior observation of frontline staff. If I was going to paraphrase that, it might read like spy on staff. I'm just wondering kind of how that works in practice, and are there other ways that you might be able to recommend that we think about lifting performance on the front line without a kind of surveillance approach?
So I guess safe behaviour observation is just a terminology that we use within the health and safety space. What the safe behaviour observation is, it's just you rock on site, you talk to someone, you just kind of engage with people, and part of it is you make sure that they're following the set protocols. You also make sure that they understand the risk and the controls around that. Safe behaviour observations is never on a negative basis. It's you just want to understand what your workers understand, and it's to verify. So part of the verification of controls is to verify that people are doing it on an ad hoc basis. So it's a part of the assessments. We talked about how do we know our processes are effective. Safe behaviour observations are a way to gauge whether our controls are effective.
Thanks. I guess our staff advised that they're participating in an observational program, or is it totally blind to the staff member?
It's a good question, Councillor. It's not something that the organisation isn't unfamiliar with. We have the audit function would regularly perform spot checks to make sure that we were doing what we had said we would be doing. So I don't necessarily agree that we're kind of spying on staff, but more, making sure that we are doing what we tell you we are doing in terms of your governance role.
All right. Thank you all. Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Harpeter.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Thank you for the report. Good to see the improvement from 2021. Still a lot of yellow. Just looking at some of the recommendations, so the recommendations that are on page 25, one of them talks about provide health and safety governance training for both elected members and senior leadership team. How do you see that working?
So the expectation is both elected members and the senior leadership team from time to time get refreshed training on governance and some of the changes or some of the kind of changes that are coming through the courts. A classic one currently is with the Port of Auckland. The CEO, unfortunately, was prosecuted and personally fined for that offence. And just kind of get elected members or senior leadership to understand what happened in court. Just a bit of refreshing to see where the government is going or where WorkSafe is going with some of their prosecutions or their expectations around health safety. Even take White Island. You know, we've had the White Island eruption that's gone to court. The courts have kicked out the ownership deal for the owners of White Island to say that they are not responsible, because just owning a piece of land doesn't make you responsible. So all those kind of things that have come through the courts. So this suggestion was that the elected members and the exec team just have refresher training around what's going on within WorkSafe and the courts.
Okay, a question for you, Desiree. Is it more around a question around health and safety readiness in terms of how ready are we as an organisation and prepared are we? Just asking that question.
Do you mean in relation to this particular recommendation and the, no,
Overall.
overall? I think that this report shows a sense of the culture in the approach to health and safety and how that is being adopted by the various levels across the organisation. So I that's my comment on that.
So a cultural audit going forward, would that be a recommendation or?
Well, I feel like that's essentially what you have here when you have 80% of the assessment is based on interviews and commentary from your staff.
From a small sample of staff though? Very small,
Where,
handpicked.
sorry, Wade wants to step in.
Yeah, through the chair. We also undertake some health and safety questions in our staff engagement survey. So that gives us an indication about how well right across the organisation we're doing in the health and safety space. Generally it's rating pretty high at the moment, but it's probably an area that we just simply don't take for granted, make sure that we continue to improve. So there's a few mechanisms that we use just to make sure we're capturing about the health of the organisation in the space.
Thank you. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Naylor.
Thank you. My questions relate to the role of elected members or governance in health and safety, and I'm just interested to know whether the effectiveness or whether that aspect was a part of this audit.
So as far as the elected members go, they weren't strictly part of the audit itself. So we only looked as far as the CEO goes. So the audit focused on workers and just the senior leadership team, but not elected members.
Okay, and were any elected members interviewed as part of this process?
No.
No. Okay, I'm interested in PCBU responsibilities of us as elected members. And in another sector that a few of us have been involved in, we were told that part of our responsibilities under the new legislation meant that simply reading a report wasn't adequate, that we literally had to observe some of the activity, and there was health and safety walkarounds that were implemented as a result of that view. I'm interested to know whether you share that view, or if not, why not?
My view is that if elected members opt to do if elected members opt to do inspections, that's up to the councillors to decide.
Opt to do what, sorry?
Sorry, that's up to the councillors to decide whether or not they want to do inspections or observations. My viewpoint is it stops with the CEO. So my viewpoint with elected members is as long as you're asking the CEO for the right questions and you're comfortable that the organisation, from a governance point of view, is managing health and safety, I think it kind of stops there. Because normally the elected members don't get prosecuted individually. They might go to court and they might have to answer questions, but their role is governance, and they've got to hold the CEO to account. So long as they are holding the CEO to account and asking the right questions, my belief is that's as far as their responsibilities go.
Okay, that's helpful, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Johnson.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Can you hear me okay? Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you, councillor.
Okay, thank you. So I have a question about the appendix with recommendations and proposed actions. And I see that 5 of those proposed actions or recommendations are outstanding from the 2021 report. So am I able to have an answer as to why we still haven't actioned everything from the 2021 report?
I'll start. The 2021 report had 33 actions, and there are 14 of those that remain outstanding, but there has been good progress on them. The remainder have been done, and there has been a lot of progress in this particular area. When we go away from this committee today, this proposal of actions will be put into the accountability report, and where there are crossovers, we will acknowledge that, and that will form part of the work plan going forwards. Selwyn, do you want to comment on that?
Through the Chair, Councillor, so some of those actions relate to the safety framework, which is the health and safety manual. That will come to fruition around about May of this year, and that will close out a good amount of further actions that were in 2021. But overall, a lot of the actions have been closed out, but they weren't reported on during audit.
Okay, thank you. So how are our staff proposing to prioritise the 30 recommendations that we've got here when the accountability report comes back to us in June?
I guess if you have some that you would prefer to be prioritised, then today would be the point to raise those. Otherwise, they'll be looked at in terms of what can be achieved the easiest and what we need to be continuing to do.
Yeah, I guess that's my concern, is that I'm wondering whether it's sort of a question of, well, what can we, the easy wins, what can we do quickly, rather than focusing on perhaps the more important things? I mean, I don't know, but is that a risk with a list like this?
Well, it can be. It is quite an extensive list, but there is always work going on, and with that framework coming into play in the next couple of months, that will show up in the June accountability reporting as being completed.
Okay, thank you.
Through the Chair, just maybe add a little bit more, Councillor Johnson, to this, is that when we, perhaps as an idea, we'll report back to the next Risk and Assurance Committee, looking at the list of the actions or recommendations that are provided there, and we can put an initial prioritisation list across it from management as to what we think might need to be looked at first, and what things can be ticked off reasonably quickly and the like.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, councillor. Councillor Barrett.
Chair, just a question prompted by some of the earlier discussion around culture. On page 18 has some of the quotable quotes that came out of your many conversations, friends, and one of them was, quote, "Staff need more confidence to raise issues." And I just wanted to know how common that sort of theme was in the conversations that you were in, and I'd like to know from our staff what we're doing to empower staff to raise issues.
So it would be less than 50% would have made that kind of comment. The impression I got from that comment was around the workers need the confidence to understand health and safety. It's like, why are we doing what we're doing? Like, so, if you say to staff, you've got to wear a hard hat, the question is why? So with staff, it's kind of like, it's a growth in understanding the reasons why we make certain rules. And so that comment was associated with workers not always understanding the whys. And so, yeah.
Can I just jump back in there? So you said less than 50% which could be anywhere from 1% to 49%. Could you give us a little more?
Yep.
Was it a quarter, a third, 10%?
So most of it came from the workers, not from the safety reps. So if we looked at, and most of it came from the people at the depot. So I would say the depot represented how much of the interviews?
That would probably be about 5% of the depot that represented in that meeting.
Thanks. So then my other aspect of the question is what we're doing to empower workers.
If that was a singular comment, I can assure that all staff know that they're empowered through Te Tumu Matua's Chief Executive statement, where he states quite clearly, and we communicate this through all our inductions, that everyone is to stand up where they feel their safety is compromised. This is common across the organisation, and it was certainly shared in some of those comments that they have confidence in the health and safety space.
So it sounds like the outbound message is very strong. How do we know that it's being received?
Staff are openly commenting certainly in the health and safety rep forums. We encourage staff to feed through the health and safety reps, and those all get brought to the table. So they're free to comment, and they do.
Great. Thank you all, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, councillor. I also a lot of the questions I had have been asked, but one thing that I did observe is that leadership is characterised as developing, and I'd just be very interested to hear your assessment, Franz, of what are the really key things that need to change. What should Wade and his team focus on first? What do they need to be doing?
Yeah. So so normally we are a bit harsher with our critique around leadership because we feel that an organisation always thrives if it's got really good leadership. The biggest thing around leadership was, although the organisation has a health and safety plan that is managed by the health and safety team, and that was all well and done, when we went back to the senior leadership and asked if they've got a health and safety objectives, if they've got a safety plan that they manage, not the safety team manage, that we found the gap. So our belief is that although the safety team has got goals and objectives, we feel that it should be really the senior leadership team should have those targets, those goals and objectives, and should be managing them.
So just to clarify, so is that really a question of how engaged the leadership team are on safety aspects in the business? Do you think that, can you just colour that a bit for me, please?
So talking to the leadership team, they were definitely engaged. This is about the documented evidence of that engagement. So yes, they were engaged. When I went to go look for some documented evidence of that engagement, that part was lacking.
Okay, thank you. And then look, as noted, there are a number of recommendations, and as Councillor Johnson pointed out earlier around, well, there's two approaches, the low fruit approach, but also that needs to be balanced with really addressing the fundamentally important things. What are the, in your view, having carried out this audit, what are the things that we should prioritise immediately?
Yeah, I guess, so first thing, just around some of those objectives. Some of those objectives we put in place because we knew they were stretching objectives. We also looked at what other businesses were doing and kind of threw in some of those objectives. So just so you can appreciate what other businesses are doing. For me, first of all, I think if the leadership team had goals and objectives that they set and they managed, that's from a leadership point of view. The biggest thing is how do you how do you educate workers to understand safety principles that are foreign to them? For what I mean is, like, if we say to workers, if you're on site and you've got to wear PPE gear, would they start asking the questions as why do we have to wear this PPE gear? It's not to say, it's not a negative, it's just so that they can understand some stuff. It's difficult to explain, is we want workers to start debating and questioning some of the safety requirements, just so they clearly understand why it's in place. Because we feel if workers understand the reason for the controls, they are more likely to follow those controls. If they don't understand the controls, then they are less likely to follow them.
Okay, and so do you, in our culture, do you feel that if workers observe unsafe behaviour, they put their hands up and say stop?
The indications from the workers, there was a mixed messaging around that. Some felt comfortable raising issues with people. Some felt that they would raise it with the worker themselves, but not pass that on to the management team. So that they might talk to a fellow worker, but they wouldn't escalate that as a report, or they wouldn't escalate that into people safe or anything like that.
Which is a problem, is it not?
It is, but fundamentally also understand, so safety has gone very much into that psychological space. If you were brought up in a household where your father shouted at you for doing anything wrong, if you come to the workplace, you kind of don't report things because your psychological says, if I report something, I'm going to get blamed. So part of safety is to make that mind shift change, to say to people, if you report something, you won't get blamed, we will talk to you about it and try and sort it out. That takes a lot of time to get people to readjust it to report things. It's something that we find in all organizations. People do underreport things. It's because the workers are not yet comfortable to reporting something on a no-blame situation.
Thank you for that answer. So I guess, in summary, it's really a leadership challenge, would you say, to get that mindset shift and lift that level of awareness? Is it a leadership challenge? I mean, who's responsible for making that change in the business? Where does it come from? Most of that change comes at supervisor level. Because it's supervisors that engage with their workers on a day-to-day basis. So I think that if you upskill and manage your supervisors and get them to be the kind of the leaders in health and safety, you tend to get a better buy-in from workers. Excellent. Thank you very much for that. I note that there are no further questions. So thank you very much for your report, greatly appreciated. And we have a recommendation to receive the health and safety audit report from the independent auditor as presented. I have a mover, Councillor Naylor, and a seconder, Councillor Dennison. Thank you. So we'll put that to the vote. Oh, sorry, comments, my apologies, out of order. So Councillor Barrett.
Thank you, Chair, and do appreciate your focus on efficiency in this meeting. Yeah, look, some helpful insights there, and actually in particular, the question and answer session I think we just had gave me some further confidence in what's come through here. And as other colleagues have said, really good to see relative to 2021, there's been a number of areas of progress, albeit a few outstanding activities from that audit, and obviously a brand new, very long list here. So plenty of work in front of us in terms of getting to where we need to be. The other comment I'd like to make is just in terms of methodology. You know, an audit is only as good as the method that is applied, and I personally would have had greater confidence if we had had an ability for any worker that wanted to participate rather than a management-picked group. I think a management-picked group can be useful, but I'd like to see that complemented with some kind of hands-up function that would allow anyone in the organization that had something to say to the auditor to say that to the auditor so that we had a full picture to form our recommendations from. But overall, good progress, helpful insights, and particularly appreciate some of the answers that we've had around the table today. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Johnson.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to make a couple of brief comments. I mean, the first one is that it's very good to see the improvement since the 2021 audit. And I think, you know, we should acknowledge that and be happy with it. But I see the value of an audit like this, not so much in giving us the opportunity to say how well we're doing, as giving us an opportunity to reflect on what else we need to be doing. And I think that the strength of this audit will come when we see how the issues that have been raised in the recommendations are addressed. And, you know, in that regard, I would encourage staff, the CE, I suppose, initially, to review the recommendations with regard to what would be priority, rather than what would be easy to achieve and quick to achieve. Because I think we should be focusing on the most important risks and the most significant threats to staff, rather than, you know, being able to say, well, we've ticked off 25% in the first 6 months. But if they're the smaller, easier to achieve, less significant things, then you know, that's not as helpful. So I'd just encourage the planning and accountability of how these recommendations might be addressed to take into account priorities, and particularly I personally would rather see that we're addressing significant safety priorities, even if they be a smaller number, than that we're ticking off a whole bunch but not actually dealing with perhaps, you know, the things that are hard to address. So just encourage that kind of lens to be put on the accountability when it comes back to us in June. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I note that there are no further comments or questions, so I think we can now move to the recommendation in front of us and put that to the vote. And that has been carried unanimously. Thank you very much for your report. We'll now move to item 8, the health and safety report. And look, I would like to resolve that move that we go into the private part of this meeting to deal with the details of some of the incidents that have been reported over the last quarter. For the reasons that are set out on the screen. So could I have a mover, Councillor Denison, seconder, Councillor Naylor, and so we will now need just a couple of minutes to, firstly, could I put that recommendation to the vote? I'm being very efficient today. So it has been carried with one abstention. So we'll just need a few moments to close out the room.